ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जतव पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. In this Friday Atma Vichara session from Ramanacentre, Bengaluru, we usually read and meditate on Bhagavan's Upadesham, and we have been reading his Upadesham from the book Ramana Answers Self-Enquiry 1900 to 1950, a compilation of all the questions put to Bhagavan on the subject matter of Atma Vichara, self-enquiry, between 1900 to 1950, and Bhagavan's Upadesham, or answers to the same. And this has been wonderfully compiled by our founder, President Sri A.R. Natarajanji. After reading out this week's question and answer, meditating on the answer by Bhagavan's grace, we will have a practice of 20 minutes of Atma Vichara. And then today Nandakumarji would be talking about Atma Vichara from his practice and experience. And then we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. We have been looking at a series of questions put to Bhagavan between 1936 to 1950. And last week we looked into the question 107. The question number 108 is a continuation by the same questioner. So for our grasp, I will read out 107 and then continue meditating on 108. 107 question goes this way. The devotee asks, how can the mind be made to go? And Bhagavan's answer has been highlighted by A.R. Natarajanji in italics. Bhagavan says, no attempt is made to destroy it. Question is, how is mind made to go? And Bhagavan's answer is, no attempt is made to destroy it. To think or wish is in itself a thought. If the thinker is sought, the thoughts will disappear. In the continuation of this question, so the thoughts will disappear, is Bhagavan's answer. And the questioner asks, will they disappear of themselves? It looks so difficult. This is his question. Bhagavan's answer is, they will disappear because they are unreal. The idea of difficulty is itself an obstacle to realization. It must be overcome. To remain as the self is not difficult. This thought of difficulty is the chief obstacle. A little practice to find out the source of I will make you think differently. Absolute freedom from thoughts is the state conducive to such a recognition of the self. I repeat Bhagavan's answer. They, that means the thought, will disappear because they are unreal. The idea of difficulty is itself an obstacle to realization. It must be overcome. To remain as the self is not difficult. This thought of difficulty is the chief obstacle. A little practice to find out the source of I will make you think differently. Absolute freedom from thoughts is the state conducive to such recognition of the self. So in here Bhagavan is making it clear for all of us how the thoughts are not at all real, but it is the same very thoughts, when attributed reality, makes everything look very difficult. He's making that clarity in a couple of ways. He's stressing that, and he's asking us, therefore, to remain as self is not difficult, he says. It is our attribution of reality. It is that we think the thoughts are there and they are continuously coming one after the other. And to get rid of that thought is not possible. Again, that is a thought. It is through thoughts only we feel it. But these thoughts are continuously coming and these thoughts cannot be overcome. That would be another thought. And Bhagavan says, when we hold on to that thought, when we feel that thought is correct, yes, there are so many thoughts and therefore I cannot get over it. When that thought appears and if you feel, yeah, it makes sense. That, Bhagavan is saying, is the main obstacle. For what he says, to remain as the self. We are verily the self. And he's saying to remain as that, when we give reality to something apart, something like an objective, something which appears like object. Nandakumarji was beautifully explaining it yesterday. So, when something appears as object and we give reality to it and forget the subject to whom it appears, and we think the object is full of reality, when the thoughts are rising one after the other and we think they are coming really one after the other, and when we get a thought that this is very difficult to stop them, they are simply gushing out. When we think so, then it looks the stopping of the thoughts and the thoughts are unreal. All these ideas look impossible or not right. We think thoughts are real and they are gushing out without any control and there is nothing I can do. And that, Bhagavan says, is the biggest obstacle when we give reality to such thoughts. On the contrary, Bhagavan says that thoughts are unreal and the self is alone real and it is not difficult. Now, that is not what we give our attention to. When we are giving reality to a thought and the continuous attention to the thoughts which are appearing as objects, we completely forget that those objects are unreal because they are appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. It may change, the contents of those thoughts may change, but each thought is not real. But when we give reality to the real content of the thought. If the content of the thought is to stop these thoughts are unreal, we hold what the thought is trying to communicate to us. But we should know that even that thought appeared just a moment back and is going to disappear. Therefore, it definitely is not real. So Bhagavan is saying, unless we see it as it is, we will not see this natural thing that is there. The natural thing is the thoughts are unreal because they are appearing and disappearing. No matter it's a good thought, a bad thought, and an ugly thought or a spiritual thought. All thoughts are appearing and disappearing. And we can very profoundly see this in the spiritual sadhana. When we are practicing, there may be some wonderful spiritual thoughts that may appear for us. And we think, wow, this is a great idea, this is a great concept, this is a great aid, you're holding on to which I can do practice. I can reach samadhi or I can do enquiry. And we find that next time the thought, that idea itself disappears. So basically all of them are appearing and disappearing. Bhagavan is saying, therefore, those thoughts are unreal. But to whom it is appearing and disappearing, when we inquire, that entity which exists prior to the thought rising, that entity which exists when the thoughts are there, that entity which is there when the thoughts disappear, that is the real. Ulladu Narpadu Bhagavan says, knowledge and ignorance, to whom it appears when we inquire, that is true knowledge. So a spiritual knowledge or a complete ignorance of seeing everything as duality, both are equally not important, says Bhagavan. To whom is it appearing? When we question and turn the attention, and this question, to whom is this appearing, is again not answered by any other thought. It is to be investigated. To whom is it? It is appearing to me. Then who am I? What do I really refer to as I to whom, from whom these thoughts are uncontrollably rising, to whom these thoughts are disturbing? To whom is this? When I inquire and turn my attention to that, to whom all of this is appearing and disappearing, who never appears or disappears, then that, Bhagavan says, a little practice in that direction to find the source of that I. It is appearing to me. So who is that I? What do I call as I? Will make you think differently, says Bhagavan, because that inquiry takes us or makes us experience that truth which never rises or falls, in which everything appears and disappears, yet it doesn't appear nor disappear, and also not, and is untouched by all that appears and disappears. That makes us think differently, says Bhagavan here. Once we inquire and try to find the source of I, and that little experience or that little practice makes us see a higher truth which is continuously present and in whose things everything appear and disappear, and yet that entity never appears nor disappears and is also equally untouched by everything that appears and disappears. And Bhagavan says, there we recognize the absolute freedom, the natural freedom from all these thoughts. And that state, in that state, there is nobody claiming that there is an absolute freedom from thoughts. That natural freedom alone is experienced. So that state is conducive, Bhagavan says, to such recognition of the self. Then one sees that to remain as that natural freedom from everything is to remain as the self. So it is not to know, to be. And to be in that state is the real freedom that one experiences. And that is the state of the self. That is how the self has ever been and will ever continue to be, as the support of everything, yet untouched by anything. And in that state, Bhagavan says that what the thoughts which appear will disappear automatically. In there we see that whatever appears will disappear, and that is untouched. Therefore, it is no more difficult. It is very natural to all of us. Therefore, enquiry, Bhagavan says, is very, very important. Enquiry makes us turn to that natural truth which alone is. Bhagavan says, Arunachala Kabalita Ghana Vishwarupa Kiranavalya. In that true knowledge, having absorbed everything, he alone remains. The truth alone is, and it alone was and will be. And that recognition will shine forth. And Bhagavan calls for a little practice. And that little practice Bhagavan is saying is to find the source of the I. And that is what we actually do in Atma Vichara. No matter how many thoughts come, no matter whatever is the nature of those thoughts, whether it is good, bad, ugly, spiritual, all thoughts are objective to whom? When we ask, it is for me, the answer would appear. And Bhagavan then asks us to hold on to this question, who am I? What do I really refer to as I? And try to find that I. And when we even start finding the I from what we experience, we see that it is unreal, it dissolves, because that itself is a thought that appears. Me is also a thought, and therefore there is no stuff in it. And when we hold on to that enquiry, who am I? So then the natural truth which alone is there is experienced, and in that we see the total freedom from thought. And therefore we recognize that all thoughts appear and disappear in that, and that alone never appears, never disappears. And what looked very difficult is not at all difficult, because the attention was on the wrong side of things. What is naturally free of thought here and now. What is that one truth alone. So Bhagavan makes the enquiry recognize the natural truth which alone is. The abundant grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path. For the next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Revati Ma, could you please help me with the time? Thanks. Namo Ramana. Over to Arji.
Namo Ramana. For this satsang meditation, I have taken from talks with Sri Ramanacentre. 10th November 1938, a question was asked why it was wrong to say that there is multiplicity of jivas. A question was asked why it was wrong to say that there is a multiplicity of jivas. Jivas are certainly many, for a jiva is only the ego and forms the reflected light of the self. Multiplicity of selves may be wrong, but not of jivas. Bhagavan. Jiva is called so because he sees the world. So the key identifier of a jiva is that a jiva is a seer of the objective world. A dreamer sees many jivas in a dream, but all of them are not real. The dreamer alone exists and he sees all. So it is with the individual and the world. There is the creed of only one self, which is also called the creed of only one jiva, Eka Jiva Tattva. It says that jiva is only one, who sees the whole world and the jivas therein. So this is called as Eka Jiva Tattva. This is very helpful in practice of Atmaviccara. Also, this is has connection with the verse Tanmai Undel Munnilai Padarkaigal Tamulava Tanmayin Unmayai Tanaindu Tanmayaril Munnilai Padarkai Mudivutru Undrai Ulirum Tanmaye Tannilaimai Ta. In Ulladinarpade, Bhagavan says, only after the first person arises, the second and the third person arise. Therefore, really, there is only one jiva within. What does it imply? It implies that whenever another jiva is thought of by us, it could be from Hariyaditara jivara. Any jiva we are thinking of, then we have flouted the rule of Eka Jiva. What is it that we have to do? We have to ask, for whom is this thought of the other jiva? For whom is this, that jiva may be anyone. For whom is this thought of other jiva? It will come, this thought is for me, the first person. So the first person is the only jiva. That means if you take the creation as a flow chart that has come out from within us, whenever you think of another jiva, if you perceive who am I, it will bring you to this point of Eka Jivatva. That means there is only one seer. Obviously, that seer is the first I principle or the Ishwaratva. So it takes us to God. When you follow the principle of, like some of us will practice Nigalvinay Patri. That means bringing our mind back to the present. Whenever it thinks of something past, something future, we will practice coming back to the present. Similarly, this Eka Jiva Tattva can be for those who are having some meditational interest in this, can be a point which will remind you of self-enquiry and bring you to that. That whenever you think of another jiva, all you have to do is ask, for whom is this thought? You will understand that there are no two jivas, there is only one. This is called as Eka Jiva Tattva. That brings us to just the preceding step to self-attention or just the preceding step to the self. That is made clear by the next question of the questioner here. Devotee asks, then the jiva means the self here. So does this mean that the Eka Jiva is itself the self? Bhagavan clarifies. So it is. So it appears that it means the self. But the self is not a seer. In the self, there is no other to be seen, and therefore the self is not a seer. It can see only itself. It can only be itself. Therefore, the Eka Jiva, but here he is said to see the world. So he is differentiated as the Jiva. That means in the Eka Jiva, you can consider that is slightly different from the self, because in self there is no other to see. So one more step, that the first person also has to vanish. That is why it is said in that verse in Ulladunarputhu that when the first person is inquired into, the first person vanishes. So there is no seer anymore. When the first person vanishes, the second and third person vanish along with him. In coming to the single jiva, you may still be a seer, but the second and third persons vanish. So this can be an impetus for us. Whenever we think of, see, especially somebody whom we don't like, or somebody whom we like a lot, the thoughts, the vasanas will be there to bring them back again and again. So whenever we are in the self-enquiry mode, Bhagavan has reminded us of self-enquiry. You should understand that we are coming to, in that flowchart of creation, you are coming to the Eka Jiva and taking the Eka Jiva from seer status to the self status of the self-luminosity. Such understandings in the intellect makes the intellect practice Atma-Vichar. These are meditations, but these will help bring the intellect back to Atma-Vichar. Whenever we are thinking of somebody whom we hate, immediately we will think other thoughts. They are deliberately doing like this. They are always having this habit. They are like this. They are like that. But that will be the opportunity to understand we have become we have got caught in the illusion of many jivas. That the other jiva is also there, that I am also there. I am the bad person. The bad person is also me only. Why we have to take that? Only then self-attention will be there. The person whom we hate is actually me only. The person about whom we comment, I don't want to be like that. That person is a competitor to me. I don't know how he is getting along. That person is already me. So whenever the thought of that other person comes, we should inquire for whom is this thought and go to the Eka Jiva before we come to the self. We can have that as a meditational input. Let's take the next one, which gives us another pointer. Talk 572 is the next to this. Of what use is the fear of death, which is common to all? This fear of death is a common meditation in Buddhism, and we all know that Bhagavan himself, in his enlightenment experience, he had the fear of death. Now, here the questioner is asking, of what use is the fear of death, which is common to all? Should we have this meditation? Is the question. Bhagavan. True. The fear of death is common to all. Such fear serves no useful purpose, because being overpowered by latent tendencies of the mind, the man dies a natural death. It does not lead him to non-attachment, and he cannot investigate the matter. So Bhagavan is putting self-enquiry ahead of meditating on death. And he says that this meditation on death is of no use when that which came to him and which he has meditated on and gone beyond to the self. He's saying you don't need to do that. That not everyone of the sadhakas need to have this meditation on death. In fact, he goes to the other extreme and says it is useless. Why? Because we have so many latent tendencies. We all know about this Smashana Vairagya. You go, it is our common, in our Indian culture, it is the practice that whether we go to a marriage or not, we should go to death of a near one, of a relative. When there is a report, we have to go. The sharing of the sorrow is more important, is our culture. We go, and some of us, we accompany the corpse to the crematorium. We see whatever procedure is there, whatever procedure that happens, it is there. And there is a vairagya there. There is a vairagya that, oh, after all, the body is only this much. Therefore, neither I nor any one of them I see is this collection of this material body. Therefore, there is a vairagya for a few moments. And Lakshman Sharma ji says in the commentary to the Marana Bhayabhikullavam, he says that the moment you get thought of a food or something else, the vasana that is there, that is when it is overpowering and when it is taking over, one will immediately forget death. So this meditation on death becomes useless, and we go through, the body undergoes a natural death, and we don't get the enquiry into non-attachment and other things. So directly do self-enquiry, that is better. That everyone has the self, and those who have come across and had the benefit of Bhagavan's Upadesham can start off self-enquiry directly. That enquiry itself will teach you about the meditation on death. The meditation on death is included in Atma Vichara. Surrender is included in Atma Vichara. The rule that our prarabdha prakaram, other kanavan, angangirundu article, that the ultimate surrender to Ishvara, that is included in Atma Vichara. The practice of letting go of results in Karma Yoga, that is the Karmanyevadikarasya Maphaleshu, that is there, that you don't go after the result, completely do the karma for its own sake, not for the result. That is automatically included in self-enquiry, because you have to let go of the thought. It could be phala, it could be work, it could be anything. So the complete surrender to God, the letting go of the phala, meditation on death, because when you let go of thoughts of the body, when you let go of thoughts per se, you are actually going through what it is to die to name and form. What it means to, does the death of the body, death of the breath, death of the mind, do they lead to our death? Is what we inquire in self-enquiry. When thoughts of the body come, we let them go. With or without the body, we are there. When thoughts of breath come, we let them go. When thoughts of emotions come, we let them go. When thoughts of the mind, the data per se, engineering, doctor comes, we let them go. Without that thought also, you are there. Thoughts related to cause and effect, good and bad, dharma, adharma of the intellect, those are also let go. So you will find that meditation of the holding the eye, it includes the meditation into the death of the 5 koshas. When the 5 koshas, not only the Annamaya kosha, when the 5 koshas die also, we don't die. Our existence is beyond the 5 koshas. Therefore, Bhagavan doesn't give much importance to the meditation on death. Though that itself, as he says, he drove my mind inward. And I did not even think of consulting anyone. I had to find the answer here and now. So he stills the body, he stills the breath, he stills the mind. He says all these 3 have died. The body has died. I don't have any intent to measure with the body, with the senses. I don't have any intent to do Kapalbhati and increase my breath strength. I have no intention to think any thought, even the I thought. Am I dead? And he gets the answer no. So that is what he teaches us as self-enquiry. And meditation on death separately is not required. In fact, practice of self-enquiry makes all other rules included in it. Because the rule will be a non-self. How can you hold a non-self when you are asked to practice self-enquiry? So self-enquiry is a sadhana that is stand-alone. By itself, it can take you to the truth. Devotee. How then are you giving the same instructions without distinction to visitors? Bhagavan, what do I say? The ego in each one must die. Let him reflect on it. Is there this ego or is there not? By repeated reflection, one becomes more and more fit to take oneself to the self, says Bhagavan. To even meditation on death separately is not required. The Atma-Ucharam takes one beyond the individuality and the seer-seen difference. It takes us to the Ekam. Ekam, Aksharam, Hrudi, Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam. Without any gap, it is shining self-luminously. So to that Akshara Vastu, Atma-Ucharam takes us. So the meditation on Ekajiva is also included in Atma-Ucharam. You will understand what Bhagavan means by Ekajiva. So even that meditation which we read in the previous talk is included in Atma-Ucharam. If you do Atma-Ucharam, you will understand why there is only one Jiva, why you don't need to think of any other Jiva. Because you are that Jiva. And by inquiring for whom is this thought, you will understand that one I. You are not Nandakumarji, the separate Jiva from the others. You are that source from which all other Jivas spring. And that is the beauty of Atma-Ucharam. By letting go of the scene, it makes all rules of the scene, all rules that were practiced by the ego, are automatically included in the destruction of the ego. Whatever rule you may have practiced using the ego to purify it is automatically included in self-enquiry. It is a standalone sadhana. You may wonder why Bhagavan has said about single jiva earlier, and then not even that is required. This is how Bhagavan takes us step by step. In self-enquiry, the first book, the discussions or the answers to Gambiram Seshayar, in one question Bhagavan says, be like a player in a drama. Do self-enquiry, let whatever happen, let it happen. Think like that and do self-enquiry. What is the answer Bhagavan gives? Bhagavan gives, let whatever happen, you be like a player in a drama and do self-enquiry. The next question, Gambiram Seshayar asks, so it is enough if we behave as though we are a player in a drama and do self-enquiry, isn't it? And Bhagavan says, why do you need that thought? Why do you need that thought that I am a player in a drama and this world is a drama? Why that thought is required? Remove that also, he says. So in the earlier answer, he has given a support that you can see the world and assume you are only merely an actor in that whatever role you are giving, you are playing, and then you do self-enquiry. But when the questioner himself asks, can I take that as a meditational point? Bhagavan says, why do you want? Why do you want to feel that the world is seen and I am merely a player? For whom is that thought? Get rid of that thought also, says Bhagavan. And that is how powerful Atma-Ucharam is. It makes you free of all supports which are all false. You don't need any support. You are the Niralamba Vastu. Until then, Atma-Ucharam will not leave. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri.
Namo Ramana, sir. Thank you. अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरम् चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि